Welcome to The Explainer. We're going to get right into it today because we're talking about fear. And not just one kind. We've got three incredible, chilling tales from India, and they each tap into a totally different kind of terror. And by the end, they're going to force us to ask a pretty tough question.
So think about it. What really gets under your skin more? Is it something invisible but totally real? Something that could actually hurt you? Or is it that classic ghost story, the thing you can't prove, that pops up on a dark, lonely road? Well, we're going to start with the first kind, a fear that is terrifyingly real because it actually happened. Let's get into it.
Okay, so our first story. Forget haunted houses or ancient curses for a minute. This one starts in a place you'd never expect, a bustling scrap market in Delhi. But this is where an invisible killer showed up, and it kicked off a massive citywide emergency, one of the worst of its kind.
It all started with just one guy, Mohan Solanki. Can you picture it? He's running through the streets at night, absolutely terrified, screaming this warning at the top of his lungs. The thing is, the city was already kind of spooked by these other rumors, so most people, they just dismissed him. They shut their doors, thought it was just more panic, but oh man, were they wrong.
So the very next day, the real horror started to unfold in the hospitals. People started showing up with these absolutely bizarre and terrifying symptoms. Their hair was just falling out. They had skin burns, but there was no fire. Their health was just crashing, fast. The doctors were baffled. This wasn't some flu. They were looking at the beginning of a full-blown national disaster.
Okay, so check out this number. Investigators rushed to the scene with their detectors, and they traced it all back to one scrap dealer's shop. Right outside, the readings were already high, but when they stepped inside, the meters shot up to 45 milliwatts per hour. Now, to give you some perspective, the safe limit is supposed to be less than 1. This place was flooded with deadly, invisible energy.
And here's the culprit, a substance called cobalt-60. This stuff is seriously, seriously dangerous. It's a highly radioactive isotope, and they found 16 little pencil-like objects containing it just sitting there in a pile of scrap metal. I mean, these things are so hazardous, they're supposed to be handled with insane levels of caution, not sold for scrap and broken open in the middle of a market.
And this is where the story becomes a true tragedy. This phrase, drop and run, it was literally written on one of the objects. A clear, simple warning. 3 words that could have saved everything. But the people in the market, they couldn't read English. The warning was right there, in plain sight, but it meant nothing.
All right, so we've seen the horror of the real, the scientific. Now let's switch gears completely. We're moving from a modern disaster to something much older. A fear that comes from the earth itself, from superstition, and from a burning desire for revenge.
So picture this. Khetpur village. It hasn't rained in 3 months. The ground is cracked open, everything is covered in dust, and people are getting desperate. And when people get desperate, they start looking for someone to blame.
And their fear zeroed in on one person, Savitri. See, for years, she was the village healer, a respected midwife who had saved so many lives. But then, a tragedy. A young woman dies during a really tough childbirth. And just like that, overnight, everything changed. The woman who was once a savior was now a witch.
So they brand her a witch, they cast her out, and they burn her home to the ground. Utterly destroyed. So what does she do? She seeks revenge. She goes out to an old, forgotten temple, and she buries a doll made of clay, like a little vessel for all her hate. And on its chest, she writes these chilling words. Your happiness is my thirst.
And it doesn't take long. A curse, dark and nasty, starts to creep into the village leader's home. It starts with this awful smell, like something decaying. Then his wife, Lashata, gets sick. But this is no normal illness. Her hair falls out. Weird blue-green marks pop up on her skin, like old coins. And at night, she wakes up screaming, but the voice coming out of her mouth is completely inhuman. The villagers are terrified, right? They race back to that temple, desperate to dig up the doll and break the curse. But just as they pull it from the ground, this bone-chilling voice booms out from the shadows of the temple, declaring, "Your end is my revenge." And that was it. The very next morning, Lata was dead. Okay, so we've had the real-world horror, we've had the slow-burn folk horror. Now we're going to pivot to something completely different. This is your classic ghost story. It's not about slow dread, it's about sharp, sudden shock. It's built for that one big, heart-stopping jump scare. I want you to put yourself there. It's 2 in the morning, you're on Highway 24, and there's no one else around. The fog is so incredibly thick you can barely see the road in front of you. You're completely isolated. Just you and your headlights cutting through this wall of white. And then you see it. A shape emerges from the fog, right in your headlights. It's a girl, dressed in white, and she's just standing there, motionless, right in the middle of the road.
So you slow down, you pull to a stop, you ask her what on earth she's doing out here in the middle of the night. She doesn't really answer. She just says, very quietly, "Drop me home."
Okay, it's weird, but you're a good person, so you agree to help. You tell her to get in the back, you wait a second, get yourself settled, and then you glance up at the rearview mirror to say something.
And the back seat is empty. Nothing. You never heard the door open or close. She's just gone. That's when the ice-cold feeling starts to crawl up your spine.
So you snap your head back around to look forward, and she's there. But she's not standing in the road anymore. No. Her face is right there, pressed against your windshield, just inches from yours. And that is the moment that makes people terrified to drive that highway, even today.
So there you have it. 3 completely different stories, right? And they really show us that fear isn't just one thing. It has many faces, it comes at us from all different directions.
I mean, on one side, you've got the Mayapuri incident. That's a real-world horror. You can measure it with a detector. It's scientific. Its threat is real, physical decay. But then you have the other kind, the supernatural stuff. The slow, atmospheric dread of the curse in Ketpur, or that quick, sharp shock of the ghost on Highway 24. You can't measure that. It's a threat to your soul, not just your body.
So this brings us right back to where we started. But maybe the question's a little different now. It's not just what's scarier. It's what fear lasts. What sticks with you long after the story is over. Is it the horror you can prove, the one with a name like Cobalt 60? Or is it the one you can't prove, the one that lingers in the dark, the one that your imagination can run wild with? Which one are you still thinking about right now?